that my sister hated me wasn't the dress. It was the smile. That tiny, perfect smile on her face when she handed me the bright orange gown while every other bridesmaid stood around us in soft lavender silk. The room went quiet. 7 bridesmaids. 7 matching lavender dresses. And me, holding a neon orange monstrosity that looked like a traffic cone stitched together by a blind designer. "Oh my God," one of the bridesmaids whispered before quickly looking away. My sister Claire tilted her head innocently. "It was the only one left," she said sweetly. Then she added the part that hurt the most. "But honestly? Orange is slimming." A few girls laughed under their breath. My stomach dropped. I stared at the tag. 2XL. 3 sizes bigger than what I wore. I looked up slowly. "Claire, this can't be mine." She shrugged casually. "You gained weight after the breakup, didn't you?" The room became painfully silent. I felt every pair of eyes on me. My face burned. My hands trembled around the hanger. And my mother, who had walked in just in time to hear everything, didn't defend me. Instead, she sighed dramatically. "Emily, please don't start drama during wedding week." "Drama?" I blinked hard. Claire crossed her arms and smiled again. "There's always something with you." That sentence hit harder than the dress itself. Because it was true. At least, that's what my family believed. If Claire forgot my birthday? I was dramatic for being upset. If Claire borrowed money and never paid me back? I was selfish for asking. If Claire insulted me in front of people? I was sensitive. Somehow, my reactions were always the problem. Never her behavior. And after years of hearing it, I'd started believing it too. So I swallowed my humiliation. I forced a smile. And I said the words everyone expected. "It's fine." Claire beamed victoriously. "See? Was that so hard?" The bridesmaids returned to chatting. My mother relaxed instantly. Crisis avoided. Except it wasn't. Because something inside me cracked that day. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. Like glass breaking underwater. The wedding venue looked like something from a movie. Crystal chandeliers. White roses everywhere. Gold candles glowing against marble floors. Claire had spent 2 years planning every detail. She wanted perfection. Or more accurately, she wanted attention. By the time the ceremony started, guests were already whispering about me. Not because I looked beautiful. Because I looked ridiculous. The orange dress clung awkwardly to my body. The oversized waist made me appear huge in photos. And standing beside 6 women in lavender? I looked like a warning sign. People stared. Some tried not to. Others didn't bother hiding it. One older woman actually frowned and asked, "Were you added last minute?" I laughed weakly. Something like that. At the altar, Claire looked radiant. She smiled for photos. Held her bouquet elegantly. Played the perfect bride. But every few minutes, she glanced at me. And smirked. Like my humiliation was part of the decoration. At the reception, things got worse. The photographer gathered everyone for group pictures. Bridesmaids closer together. The lavender dresses formed a perfect soft purple line. Then there was me. Orange. Huge. Impossible to ignore. The photographer hesitated. Then awkwardly asked, "Maybe you could stand toward the back?" Claire bit her lip to stop herself from smiling. I nodded quietly and stepped backward. The entire night felt endless. People danced. Laughed. Celebrated. Meanwhile, I sat alone near the edge of the ballroom trying not to cry. I kept checking my phone, pretending to be busy. Mostly so nobody would see my eyes. Then my father approached me with a glass of champagne. Not sympathy. Not comfort. Annoyance. You've been sulking all evening, he muttered. I stared at him in disbelief. Dad. Your sister deserves one day that isn't about your feelings. I almost laughed. Because I hadn't said a single thing all night. Not one complaint. Not one scene. I looked across the room. Claire was dancing with her new husband while guests circled around cheering. Perfect bride. Perfect daughter. Perfect life. And somehow I was still the problem. Dad leaned closer. Try smiling for once. Then he walked away. I sat there frozen. Something hot rose in my chest. Not sadness anymore. Exhaustion. I was exhausted from being blamed for things I didn't do. Exhausted from shrinking myself so Claire could shine brighter. Exhausted from pretending cruelty was normal. A tear slipped down my cheek. I wiped it quickly. That's when someone sat beside me. An elderly woman with silver hair and sharp blue eyes. The groom's grandmother. Margaret. I'd met her only once before. Unlike everyone else in the family, she didn't smile politely. She studied me carefully. Like she could see everything. You're Claire's sister, she said softly. I nodded. She glanced at my dress. Then around the ballroom. Then back at me. And suddenly her expression hardened. How long has your family treated you this way? The question stunned me. I opened my mouth. Closed it again. She already knew. Margaret reached over and took my trembling hand. Her skin was cool and gentle. Then she leaned close and spoke 6 quiet words. You are not the difficult one. I froze. The world around me disappeared. Music faded. Voices vanished. Because nobody had ever said that to me before. Not once. Not in my entire life. Tears filled my eyes instantly. Margaret squeezed my hand tighter. I watched your sister tonight, she whispered. And I watched you. I couldn't speak. She continued calmly. Cruel people depend on kind people staying silent. My chest tightened painfully. She looked toward the dance floor where Claire laughed dramatically for another photo. She embarrassed you on purpose. Hearing someone finally say it aloud felt unreal. Like oxygen after years underwater. I started crying silently. Not loud sobbing. Just quiet tears I could no longer hold back. Margaret handed me a napkin. You remind me of myself at your age, she said gently. I laughed shakily. That's not a compliment. Oh, it is now, she replied. Then she surprised me again. Come with me. She stood carefully and motioned for me to follow. Confused, I did. She led me across the ballroom. Straight toward Claire. My stomach twisted immediately. Margaret, please. But she kept walking. The music softened as guests noticed us approaching. Claire turned with a bright fake smile. There you are. We're about to cut the cake. Margaret interrupted her. Before that, I have something to say. The room grew quieter. Claire blinked nervously. Oh? Margaret faced the crowd. I've attended many weddings. Guests exchanged curious glances. I've seen beautiful marriages, she continued. And I've seen ugly hearts hidden beneath beautiful dresses. The silence became heavy. Claire's smile faltered slightly. Margaret pointed directly at me. This young woman has been humiliated all evening. My mother immediately stood. Oh, please don't make a scene. Margaret turned sharply. No. The scene was made the moment your daughter singled out her own sister for ridicule. Gasps rippled across the ballroom. Claire's face turned pale. Margaret, I think you misunderstood. I understood perfectly. Her voice cut through the room like glass. You isolated her intentionally. Different dress. Wrong size. Public embarrassment. The bridesmaids looked down awkwardly. Because they knew. They had all known. Claire forced a laugh. It was just a mistake. Margaret stared at her coldly. No, dear. A mistake is accidental. Then came the sentence that changed everything. What you did was cruel. The ballroom fell completely silent. Claire looked around desperately for support. My parents stepped forward immediately. This is inappropriate, my father snapped. But Margaret wasn't intimidated. You raised one daughter to believe she must earn love. Then she pointed toward Claire. And another to believe she deserves worship. My mother's face went white. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The groom, Daniel, looked utterly stunned. He turned slowly toward Claire. Is this true? Claire laughed nervously. Daniel, don't be ridiculous. But her voice cracked. And for the first time all night, people weren't looking at me anymore. They were looking at her. Really looking at her. The smug expressions. The mocking comments. The calculated humiliation. Daniel's face changed completely. Like puzzle pieces suddenly clicking together. He looked at the orange dress. Then at the lavender bridesmaids. Then back at Claire. You told me she chose that color. Claire opened her mouth. Nothing came out. One bridesmaid quietly muttered. She didn't. Daniel stared at Claire in disbelief. You lied? Claire's mask finally cracked. Oh my God, it was one dress. The room erupted into whispers. She's always jealous of me. Claire shouted suddenly, pointing at me. I flinched automatically. Years of conditioning. But this time, nobody agreed with her. Because now they'd seen it themselves. Daniel stepped backward slowly. Like he didn't recognize the woman he'd married. Claire noticed immediately. Daniel? He rubbed his face. You humiliated your sister for fun? It wasn't fun. It clearly was. Claire's eyes darted wildly around the room. She realized she was losing control. And Claire could never handle losing control. Tears filled her eyes instantly. Not genuine tears. Strategic tears. I can't believe everyone's attacking me at my own wedding. Then she ran. Straight out of the ballroom. The massive doors slammed behind her. And just like that, the bride left her own wedding. Nobody knew what to do afterward. Guests stood awkwardly. The DJ slowly lowered the music. Some people pretended to check their phones while secretly gossiping. My parents looked furious. At me. Still. As if I'd orchestrated the entire thing. My mother stormed over first. Are you happy now? I stared at her. Actually stared. And for the first time in my life, I saw her clearly. Not as my mother. As a person. A flawed person. Someone who had spent years protecting one child while sacrificing another. And suddenly I wasn't scared anymore. No, I said quietly. Her eyes narrowed. I'm not happy. My voice shook slightly. But I'm done pretending Claire is a victim. She looked genuinely shocked. Like she'd never expected me to defend myself. Dad stepped forward angrily. You embarrassed this family. I laughed softly. That surprised even me. Really? I gestured toward the ballroom. She humiliated me in front of hundreds of people. Neither of them answered. Because they couldn't. Margaret approached beside me calmly. She didn't ruin this wedding, she said firmly. Your favoritism did. My parents looked stunned into silence. Daniel sat alone near the dance floor with his tie loosened and his face pale. The wedding guests slowly began leaving. Some whispered sympathetically to me on their way out. Others avoided eye contact entirely. The illusion had shattered. And everybody knew it. I left the venue shortly after midnight. No dramatic goodbye. No screaming fight. Just quiet footsteps out the door. As I reached the parking lot, someone called my name. Emily. I turned. Daniel jogged toward me. Still wearing his wedding suit. Still looking devastated. I'm sorry, he said immediately. For all of it. I shook my head weakly. You didn't know. I should have. He looked genuinely ashamed. Then he handed me something. A folded check. I frowned. What is this? The cost of the dress, he said bitterly. I almost laughed. It's not about money. I know. His eyes softened. But you deserved better tonight. For a second neither of us spoke. Then he sighed heavily. I don't know if my marriage survives this. I looked back toward the glowing ballroom windows. Honestly? Neither did I. 3 months later, Claire and Daniel separated. Apparently the wedding wasn't the only lie. Once Daniel started noticing her behavior, he noticed everything. The manipulation. The cruelty. The constant need to humiliate others to feel superior. And without everyone automatically defending her. Claire unraveled fast. My parents tried pressuring me to apologize for causing tension. For the first time ever. I refused. And something unexpected happened. The world didn't end. Nobody disowned me. I survived. Actually. I felt lighter. Like I'd spent my whole life carrying a version of myself built from other people's accusations. Too sensitive. Too emotional. Too difficult. But Margaret's words stayed with me. You are not the difficult one. 6 words. That was all. 6 tiny words that changed my entire life. Because sometimes healing doesn't begin with revenge. Sometimes it begins the moment someone finally tells you the truth